So let's begin. My name is Dan, and thank you so much for joining us for this mindful moment. We meet 3 times a day, 9 o'clock, 12:30, and 7:30 to take a moment for mindfulness in these particularly chaotic times. Each class consists of about a 30-minute practice. It's going to be introduction and review, then a brief topic of discussion. Today we're talking about the nervous system and how that's affected through meditation. And then a guided meditation. Today we'll be doing a body scan. Then we'll finish up with a koan, which is a Zen riddle, and then we'll be on our way. So, alrighty, thank you very much. Let's go ahead and get started. Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in. So first off, our intentions. We like to set an intention for the practice, so that's a dedication or applying a purpose or meaning to what we're doing here today. So we set our intention with a deep breath in and a long breath. Lovely. And next, I like to start each class with this valuable reminder. The real meditation is how you live your life. And that's a quote by John Kabat-Zinn, one of the popularizers of the mindfulness-based stress reduction. And I think it's just really valuable and ties in nicely to our koan, or a really lesson from yesterday. And this went a little something like this. When asked why he practiced Zen, the student said, "Because I intend to become a Buddha." His teacher picked up a brick and started polishing it. The student asked, "What are you doing?" The teacher replied, "I'm trying to make a mirror." "How can you make a mirror by polishing a brick?" "How can you become a Buddha by doing Zazen?" If you understand sitting Zen, then you'll know Zen is not about sitting or laying down. If you want to learn sitting Buddha, you know that Buddha is without any fixed form. Do not use discrimination in the non-abiding Dharma. If your practice is sitting Buddha, you must kill Buddha. If you are attached to sitting form, you are not yet mastering the essential principle. The student heard this admonition and felt as if he had tasted sweet nectar. So I think this is this little story, this little parable, whatever, is a really valuable reminder, and I think it's something that's very important in our meditation practice, and it's why I use that quote at the beginning of every class. Sitting meditation in practice is something I highly recommend for everyone. I think everyone should have some form of a daily-ish sitting meditation. And if you want to know what I more mean about daily-ish, I highly recommend you check out 10% Happier by Dan Harris, his podcast. He has an app as well. But if you want, if you attach to anything in life, including the practice of your meditation, it becomes a source of suffering. And you might attach it to the style of meditation, or the time in which you do meditation, or the location of the meditation. And then if you're lacking any of these things, then it's a source of suffering, right? So our goal here is to bring the meditative mindset to everything we do. Unconditional acceptance of what is the now, seeing life as it truly is. And that's the aims of meditation and mindfulness. So any fixation on the form must be killed, like we was killed the sitting Buddha, or let go of. Beautiful. And next, a reminder of our working definition of mindfulness. Mindfulness is the combination of awareness, equanimity, and concentration. Awareness is simply the recognition of existence. Equanimity is the unconditional acceptance of what is now. And concentration, in this context, is the intention to keep the mind's attention on the cultivation of awareness and equanimity. So today's topic I've titled The Nerve of Meditation. So let's begin with what it do. What are the effects of on the nervous system of meditation? So meditation reduces inflammation, it lowers cortisol levels, it lengthens attention span, and can regulate cravings. It can also improve sleep and reduce pain. So those are just some of the effects on the nervous system. I really like this kind of illustration, or that picture. I think it's really powerful, perhaps illustration of what we're doing when we're engaging in mindfulness. That kind of biology and panic and fear and all that kind of stuff, that's kind of the shark in this picture, and then we're just kind of putting a halt on that when engaging in meditation and mindfulness. So I enjoyed that picture. Oh yes, and it can also decrease blood pressure, very important as well. Next, I want to talk about the vagus nerve, and that's what it looks like. It is the largest nerve in the body. It has a right and a left portion, as you can see. It's called the vagus nerve because it wanders throughout all the organs of the body. And when people say trust your gut, a lot of times they're referring to the vagus nerve. It is the quote-unquote queen of the parasympathetic nervous system, and just a reminder, the parasympathetic nervous system is the rest and digest. It communicates upstream, which is kind of unique. A lot of nerves or things in your body go one way. Your vagus nerve goes afferent, which means it communicates back to your brain, so it kind of creates its own looping. Breathing slows the heart. So by slowing our breathing, we can also slow our heart, and that is done through the vagus nerve. And they found that vagal activity is strongest during exhale, which is really quite interesting. They also wanted to know, is there any particular breathing pattern that best stimulates the vagus nerve? And it's roughly 5 in and 5 out. So the vagus nerve is actually unique to mammals. It coordinates oxytocin networks, can also boost your immune system response, as well as reducing inflammation responses. Other ways to stimulate the vagus nerve are laughing, singing, humming, yoga, acupuncture, or splashing the face with cold water. And what they found is when they've severed the vagus nerve, the levels of fear and learned fear drop off quite rapidly. So when we turn down the vagus nerve, we're actually turning down our capabilities for fear. Next, I want to talk about the brain activity during meditation. One important facet is that positive and negative emotions look different in the brain. And this is a fundamental and really important fact, because that means we can begin to explore the different ways our situations or environments, internal and external, affect our brain. And as we continue to explore, we find stronger and stronger correlations between subjective reports, how we report their feeling, and what we're finding in objective measures. Things like fMRIs and brain waves, but even things just as simple as heart rate and breathing rates, we can begin to correlate those with general mind states. So here's what the research supports. And it's a little bit of a tough pill to swallow. Changing the external environment does very little to change happiness. There seems to be within us a baseline of happiness which is hardly altered by external environments. Significant life events such as injury or trauma can certainly have lasting impacts, but research supports that whenever able, the brain will return to a relatively normal baseline. Now, relatively normal is the key phrase here, because it's your normal. We are automatically shaped to a level of happiness, and if we're one of the lucky ones who's happy all their lives, that's great. Or if we're one of the unlucky ones left only to external environments, that does not bode well for very good outcomes. So, thankfully, internal landscapes can make big changes. If we focus on our internal landscapes, it has been found to make significant changes, and we will talk a little bit about these changes in the following slide. When we're talking about brain activity and meditation, sorry about that. When we're talking about brain activity and meditation, we're talking a lot about these two particular waves. There's the focused attention, which is gamma waves, very, very fast. And those are going to be things like Tibetan meditations, loving kindness meditations, compassion meditations, where they're a little bit more active. And then the other type of meditation is open awareness meditation, theta waves, a little bit slower. These are going to be things like mindfulness and zazen type meditations. And what we find is when we're practicing meditation, what we're doing a lot of is manipulating these two different brain waves. So we're either elevating, decreasing, or kind of altering in one way, shape, or form. So these are kind of imperative towards understanding, what's going on in our brain. Now, next, I just wanted to talk briefly about the brain regions affected through meditation. The first one is the posterior cingulate, and that lights up during impulsive behaviors. So things like thinking about ourselves, mind wandering, thinking about the past or future, judging, all of those things, all those moments when we're caught up in ourselves, that's when the posterior cingulate is really lit up. When we're meditating, it's turned down. The frontal lobe, next is the amygdala. The amygdala, which is responsible largely for fear and like intense emotional responses, particularly in the woman, gets turned way down during meditation. So those kind of fear responses, strong emotions, way down. The next is the frontal lobe, and this is the most highly evolved part of the brain, responsible for reasoning, planning, emotion, self-conscious awareness. During meditation, the frontal lobe tends to go almost offline. The parietal lobe, and this is the part that processes sensory information about surrounding world, orientation in time and space. During meditation, the parietal lobe is slowed down significantly. Also, it's thought that the parietal lobe may also contain the sense of self in space, and that's turned down big big time. So that's a common kind of expression when you're like experiencing or in the experience of meditation. You kind of lose your feeling of space and orientation in space. A lot of that is linked to the parietal lobe. Next is the thalamus, which is the gatekeeper for the senses. This organ focuses your attention by funneling sensory information deeper into your brain and stopping other signals in their tracks. Meditation reduces the flow to a trickle. So some people also believe that the thalamus may be one of the seeds of consciousness. So then again, this is particularly important. And last but not least is the reticular formation, and it's one of the oldest parts of the brain in the brain stem, in its brain century. It's a structure that receives incoming stimuli and puts the brain on alert, ready to respond. When you're meditating, this is way turned back, arousal signals way down. So one way to think of it is meditating is like putting on glasses to see the world more clear. How I also like to think of it is it's like taking off sunglasses to see in a movie theater. Lovely. And lastly, I just want to talk about a concept called neuroplasticity. And it's to say generally, it's that our repeated exposures shape our brain. What we practice becomes stronger. And this is important because this tells us why we even want to be practicing meditation. About 47% of our day is caught up in daydreaming or experience. And that's a very conservative estimate. I've seen higher numbers that we're caught up in, 60 or 70% of the time just off in our own little world. And this creates a default mode network. It's the pattern of our brains. For the vast majority of functioning throughout the day, our brain just fires and we're good to go, and that's the right pattern. But eventually what happens is we start to experience change, and these patterns aren't serving us anymore, and then we kind of experience this form of dissonance, and it's time to exercise our neuroplasticity and change our patterns in our brain. Mindfulness meditation has been found to increase brain matter in 5 different regions of the brain. As well as that's increase regions. It's also been found to decrease regions in areas such as the amygdala, which is for intense emotion. Another study I found that participants showed up to a 15% growth in certain brain regions, and that's after 8 weeks of only 12 minutes of practice a day. So just 12 minutes of practice of mindfulness for 8 weeks was found to show up to a 15% growth in certain brain areas. The way I like to think about this is your brain is a river, not a rock. So often we conceptualize the brain as this fixed thing, this fixed organ in your brain that is almost like a computer or a processor, and it just does what it does, and it's very it is what it is. But in reality, it's something infinitely more fluid. It's never the exact same thing it was a moment ago, and it's constantly changing and growing and altering experience. So I think to visualize our brains more as a river than a rock is a very powerful visualization. Lovely. And now it is time for our guided meditation. Today we will be doing a guided meditation, a body scan activity. I just want to see if I can get the music. So let's begin by taking a moment to allow ourselves to settle into a comfortable position. You may want to close your eyes or keep them slightly open and settle into a comfortable gaze. Begin to lift your spine and allow your shoulders to soften. Today, we'll be practicing a body scan. Taking a full, deep breath in, and long breath out. Now, let's begin to bring attention to our body. Noticing, feeling the weight in your chair, the seat below you. Just noticing the point of contacts of your body. And as you breathe, notice how your chest and abdomen expand to allow for the air to enter your lungs. What sensations are you aware of? Tuning into the sensations of the chest, the lungs, and the abdomen as you breathe. And on your next exhale, bring into awareness the stillness and notice a sense of relaxing more deeply. Now, bring your attention to the top of your scalp, all the way to the top of your head. Simply noticing any sensations. And slowly, down the back of your head, noticing any sensations there. Moving around the sides of your face. Simply tuning in, anything you might be feeling. Now, really noticing the face, the muscles in the face. Are we holding any tension in our brow, or our jaws, lips? What's our tongue doing? Simply tuning in the sensations of our face and our head. Head. Breathe in. Breathe out. Feeling the gentle relaxation in your head. Now, notice the neck and the throat. Let them be soft. Notice your shoulders, your arms. Feel any sensations as you allow the tension to move from your shoulders to your upper arms, to the elbows, the forearms, wrists, hands, and fingers. Energy gently floating and flowing out of your arms. Noticing any tightness or temperature sensations that you may be feeling as we're gently tuning in to our arms. We might be noticing the fabric of the clothing against us, feeling that on our skin. Continuing to breathe in and breathe out. Maintaining gentle focus on the sensations of our body. Now, let's bring our attention to our chest and to our abdomen. Feel the movement in your chest as you breathe. Giving the fullness of sensation and experience to the breath. Now bringing attention to your stomach. Noticing if your stomach is tight or tense. And just letting it soften. Tuning into the sensations, the gentle belly breathing, soft belly. Next, noticing the upper back and the lower back. If you're holding any tension here, also letting that release. Turning to the sensations throughout the entirety of your back, between the shoulder blades, the lower back. See if you can just release any tension, or just turn with loving kindness for these areas. As we continue to extend gentle awareness to the sensations of our back. Now, let's continue traveling down the legs to the thighs, to the knees, calf, and shins. Your ankles. And finally, bringing your attention to your feet. Noticing the sensations of the feet. Feeling your feet wherever they are. On the ground, on the floor. Noticing any weight or any sense of temperature. Simply feeling the energy present in the feet. And as we continue breathing in and out, let's see if we can notice the whole body. From the top of our heads, all the way down to our toes. Staying with the sense of the whole body for a few more breaths. Tuning in to the feeling of our whole body. Our body as a whole. And as we continue remaining aware of our body as best as we can, we finish with a full deep breath in and a long deep breath out. Good. And so body scans are a cornerstone and a building block of many different meditative practices, but particularly mindfulness. And it's important to remember that awareness or capability to tune into the sensations of our body are always with us at any moment from day to day. And then the capability, furthermore, to extend relaxation or gentle kindness to those areas of discomfort and challenge is also something we can do from moment to moment. And the more we do that, the more we practice. And a body scan can be any amount of time. It can be a 2-second body scan, it can be an hour, whatever works best for you. But I just wanted to share that with you all today, and I hope you enjoyed. Lovely. And now for our parting wisdom. Today's koan is called Joshu's Moo. A monk asked Joshu, "Has a dog the Buddha nature?" And Joshu answered, "Moo." And moo roughly translates to no. So it's a little bit confusing because, in a Buddhist perspective, all creatures, all beings have Buddha nature. And particularly, if not any, the happy dog might have even more so the Buddha nature. So for Joshu, a wise Zen master, to answer moo or no kind of shakes us out of our conceptual thinking. So again, we'll discuss that at the beginning of next class. Thank you all for taking the time to join me in this mindful moment. It was an honor and pleasure meeting with you today, every moment, any moment. I wish you all the best ventures. Until next time, love. Take it easy.